So it was a couple years ago, I get a couple of requests for a band by the name of Volbeat. And of course, this is a band that I really didn't know very much about. I didn't get very many requests, but people wanted me to review an album of theirs that came out a while ago, and happened again whenever their last album came out. But here we are in 2013, and Outlaw Gentlemen and Shady Ladies comes out. And of course, it's finally time for me to, talk about this album. It's time for the nation to talk about this album. It's finally time for the nation to talk extensively about Volbeat. So Volbeat has been getting a lot of popularity and a lot of attention as of the past, year and a half, give or take, because of their unique blend of metal, which actually blends a lot of traditional rock and roll, a lot of rockabilly, and a lot of just traditional style heavy metal, all blended together. And of course, with past albums, they've encountered covers, not to mention some pretty big royalty whenever it comes to the metal department. I mean, they've had Barney from Napalm Death on one of their albums, and now here on this album, they have King Diamond. So, of course we have to talk about this band, because King Diamond's awesome, and, well, Volbeat is definitely getting a lot of attention, so they definitely deserve to be examined. Now, this album has a lot of allusions to the Old West, and this is definitely present in some of the song titles that you have present, being named after such people such as Doc Holliday. And with that being said, you might actually think that there'd be a little bit of a Western-style theme going on here, and, well, I wouldn't exactly call these guys gunslingers of metal, but maybe gunslinging metal is what you could call Volbeat. Maybe that's the way that they could distinguish themselves amongst the plethora of other ridiculous metal that we've heard within the past couple of years, most of which I've somehow invented. That stuff hasn't really happened, but, So anyways, with this album, we have a nice, excellent beat of, blend, should I say, of what Volbeat is already known for, and they actually extend everything just a little bit more. And what I mean by that is very simple. Volbeat has been a band that's been able to blend something that's relatively simplistic, kind of molded into a style that lasts only about 4 minutes per song, but they've been able to engage listeners with something that's a little bit different than your traditional verse, chorus, verse, style or blend of metal that you maybe have heard of other bands that have also populated the radio stations and have been given and granted the metal distinction. And what really happens here is the fact that it definitely has a lot more of a crunch to it. There's definitely a little bit more of an up-tempo-ness to this. And, of course, there's that distinctive voice. A distinctive voice that one could only really mention as Glenn Danzig actually attempting to do something aside from punk. Now, of course, this all makes perfect sense, considering Danzig and the Misfits were cited as an influence, and the fact that on one of the deluxe editions of a previous album, they actually did a cover of the song Angel Fuck. Now, speaking of covers, on this album, they do a cover of a Young the Giant song, of all people, entitled My Body. Now, My Body, of course, was a huge hit in 2011, the latter stages, and the first part of 2012. Partnering up with their song Cough Syrup in order to really propel these guys into the public eye. Now, with Volbeat, they're able to add a little bit more of an aggressive, a little bit more metallic edge to it, but still remain very tried and true to the song itself. This is not something where Volbeat has decided to really ruin the song with an interpretation that absolutely had to focus on the heaviness, or absolutely had to focus on the fact that they needed to sound different. No, instead they were very true to the original, and for that reason, it's a very, very eloquent cover. Now, of course, we have to mention the fact that they have King Diamond on one of their tracks. That's a fantastic addition, mainly because King Diamond's voice, along with Volbeat's own distinctive vocal pattern, really actually works relatively well. And even though it doesn't seem as though King Diamond is doing much aside from, just helping out, it definitely goes with the song extremely well. In fact, this whole entire album flows very well. Now, the one thing that can be said about albums of this variety, and this album is unfortunately no different, is that after a while it does tend to be a little bit samey in regard. And by that I mean that there isn't exactly a tremendous amount of variety that you're going to hear on this album. However, the way in which they're able to remain engaging to listeners is in the fact that the songwriting, even though there is a lot of similar tendencies embroidered within, is still just interesting enough to really maintain your attention and maintain your focus. You really remain focused on the music as opposed to kind of easily being distracted from it. And that's a mark actually of a band that is, really honed into their craft, they're really honed into their sound, they're really honed into who they are, but at the same time, they're able to keep it creative. So I have to give them a lot of praise. I'll be blunt with you guys. almost like the Bring Me the Horizon album, I kind of went into this Volbeat album with not a lot of expectations. In fact, I figured that after a couple of tracks, I would grow bored of the same old philosophy, the same old structure, the same old idea. But this album really surprised me. It surprised me in the fact that it was able to keep me entertained, not to mention it was also able to really present a very strong palette. Some people may be disappointed in the fact that there isn't more variety on this release, either that or that it sounds eerily similar to some of the things that they've done in the past. But this isn't necessarily going to be a band that's going to branch out and do that super duper creative album, maybe until their, 6th or 7th album. It might still be upcoming. Right now, they're in a period where they are extremely well known, and right now, doing what they're doing is all that they really need to do. And to be perfectly blunt, compared to some of the other bands that are out there, compared to the fact that we're going to be talking about Device later on this week, oh boy, Volbeat is definitely a breath of fresh air. So, hey, I gotta say, in the pantheon of albums from bands that are relatively popular right now in the metal sector, this one's actually a winner. I'd give it a strong 8 out of 10. I really like the fact that they were able to keep everything very theme-worthy, not to mention they were also able to keep the album engaging. Everything about this just really resonates well, and I kind of enjoyed the experience a little more than I thought I would. And I hope that you would too. But if you don't, why don't you tell me why in the comments, because I'm really eager to know. So what did you guys think of the album? What should I review next? Who am I again? I'm not the needle drop.